The Curse of Oak Island. A baffling artifact and a new tunnel keeps the team guessing. This week on The Curse of Oak Island, the team was fired up after discovering an ancient ornate artifact, and the drill team continued to locate previously unexplored tunnels in the area of the garden shaft. After an action-packed start to Season 10, the Fellowship of the Dig seemed to be playing the waiting game for much of this episode. They are waiting for the Dumas Mining Company to excavate the garden shaft, and they're waiting for the Muon technology sensors to return data so they can begin mapping under the surface of the island. In the meantime, the drill team is keeping themselves busy by attempting to track the course of a tunnel approximately 40 feet away from the garden shaft. But on last night's episode, they complicated matters by uncovering a second tunnel at a shallower elevation. Unfortunately, their progress has now been hampered by the Muon detectors that are placed in the ground not far from the garden shaft. These sensors will not be finished collecting data for another few months, and the team can't risk damaging them by digging nearby. Rick and the guys came up with a compromise and picked a spot to dig that they felt was far away enough from the detectors and could still fit a tunnel. However, to the viewer, it looked a bit like a hopeful shot in the dark. Mysterious artifact is found on Lot 8 of Oak Island. Meanwhile, Gary Drayton and Jack Begley found an interesting artifact in Lot 8. The ornate artifact, which fitted comfortably in the palm of Gary's hand, was a flat object decorated with symbols on either side. The archaeology team, led by Laird Niven, were baffled by the artifact, each stating that they had seen nothing like it before. The object went into the XRF machine, X-ray fluorescence, which concluded it was a copper alloy. The metallic makeup, coupled with the handmade markings, all suggested that this was a very old object. The CT scanner took over and cut through all the erosion to give the guys a clearer look, but the object remained a mystery. Expert suggests Oak Island find is a ceremonial object from Europe. The team drafted in Dr. Edwin Barnhart, an archaeologist and specialist in the Mayan civilization, to take a look. He, too, seemed a little baffled by the strange object and suggested he be allowed to study it in more detail. Barnhart did speculate that it could be a religious icon and was likely used in a ceremonial function. He also guessed from its metal composition that it probably did not come from the Americas but was most likely European. The guys previously uncovered what they thought was a gemstone from a brooch on Lot 8. However, they were recently informed that it could have been from a Masonic ceremonial breastplate. Perhaps these two items are linked. Like so many episodes, this one had more questions than answers. On the plus side, the Dumas crew should have the garden shaft excavated in the next month or so, hopefully allowing the guys to finally get underground and into the money pit. As the summer fog lifted off the Atlantic and danced over the mysterious swell of Oak Island, anticipation buzzed like static in the salty air. The Fellowship of the Dig, Rick and Marty Lagina, Craig Tester, Charles Barkhouse, and the rest of the tireless team had regrouped with renewed determination. This season had already delivered its fair share of shockers, but nothing could prepare them for what was about to come, an unexplainable artifact buried in the depths of a previously undiscovered tunnel that threatened to rewrite Oak Island history once again. It began, as many of their breakthroughs did, in the money pit area. Jack Begley was knee-deep in sediment as the drill core sample was slowly pulled to the surface. The latest scan had indicated a void, possibly another chamber or collapsed shaft, about 98 feet down. They weren't expecting much. The team had learned the hard way that Oak Island rarely gave up its secrets easily. But as the steel tube rose and cracked open under the careful hands of archaeologist Miriam Amaralt, everyone gathered around with held breath. At first glance, the core looked like every other: compacted clay, splintered wood, water-saturated stone. But then Miriam's trawl hit something that didn't belong. She brushed away the surrounding muck and lifted it out, a jagged, wedge-shaped object made of some kind of dark greenish-black material. It looked old, ancient even. "It's not metal," Miriam muttered, frowning. "But it's almost glassy. Volcanic?" Rick took it gently and held it to the sunlight. It glinted with unnatural hues, deep emerald and obsidian, and was etched with what appeared to be tiny symbols or runes too faint to decipher by eye. "It looks ceremonial," said Alex Lagina, pulling out his phone to snap pictures for analysis. "Or maybe part of a tool, but not from any known colonial." Dr. Ian Spooner confirmed the object didn't match anything native to Nova Scotia or typical of early European settlers. Geochemical testing raised even more eyebrows. The mineral composition was similar to obsidian, but it contained trace elements not found in North American sources. Possibly Polynesian, Spooner said, or even Mesoamerican. The room fell into stunned silence. Was it possible that seafarers from halfway across the globe had reached Oak Island centuries ago and left behind relics of their visit? Meanwhile, in Lot 5 near the stone pathway, Billy Gerhardt and his team continued their excavation efforts. They'd been chasing strange ground-penetrating radar signals for weeks and finally hit what they believed could be the edge of a man-made tunnel. As they followed the path, the soil began to collapse inward, revealing a hollowed-out corridor, its walls reinforced by ancient timber. Rick, Charles, and Laird Niven crawled inside the tunnel the moment it was safe. They measured the timber and took samples, their excitement growing with each foot they advanced underground. The wood dated back to the late 1300s, well before any known European presence in Nova Scotia. "Another pre-Columbian structure," Laird whispered, awe in his voice. "We're standing in something that shouldn't exist." Even more baffling was where the tunnel led. It curved southeast, deeper under the island and toward the swamp. As they reached a fork, they uncovered a set of strange symbols carved crudely into one of the beams, symbols that looked suspiciously like those found on the 90-foot stone and the recently unearthed artifact. The symbols weren't just coincidental, they were deliberate. A message, a warning, a clue. Back at the war room, Doug Crowell pored over maps, charts, and ancient manuscripts. He compared the symbols with a Templar cipher found in France, then cross-referenced with a Polynesian petroglyph database. The overlaps were eerie. Too many cultures. Too much coincidence. "We're looking at something bigger," Doug said finally. Maybe this island wasn't just a hiding place. Maybe it was a convergence point. That idea struck a chord. Over the years, theories had ranged from the Knights Templar to Spanish pirates, from Shakespearean manuscripts to the lost treasures of Atlantis. But what if all of those stories held slivers of truth? What if Oak Island had been visited by many secretive groups, each leaving behind their own piece of the puzzle? Later that week, Gary Drayton's metal detector began singing near the entrance of the new tunnel. He dug quickly, with Jack helping him unearth the source. What they found was a circular bronze medallion, heavily corroded but still intact. It depicted a strange hybrid creature, part bird, part serpent, surrounded by more of the mysterious symbols. "Looks like something from a South American culture," Gary mused. "But it's definitely not pirate loot." Marty, usually the more skeptical of the Lagina brothers, now found himself staring at the medallion with the same wonder Rick always wore. "We're not just dealing with treasure," he said. "We're dealing with a message, or a map. And we're only beginning to translate it." As the team stood around the newly found artifact, thoughts swirled. What if the purpose of the money pit wasn't to hide treasure at all, but to protect a knowledge or power that had been passed down through the centuries? The symbols, the tunnels, the strange artifacts from different corners of the world, it was as if Oak Island had drawn the world's secrets to its shores. Still, many questions remained. Who built the tunnel? What was the artifact's purpose? And how had it come to rest under 98 feet of sediment on a tiny island in Nova Scotia? The team knew one thing for sure. Oak Island had just pulled them deeper into its mystery. As the sun dipped below the tree line, casting long shadows across the dig site, Rick stood quietly, staring out over the waters of Mahone Bay. He clutched the obsidian-like artifact in his hand, feeling the cool weight of history pressing against his palm. "We're not just digging holes anymore," he said softly to Marty. "We're unraveling something that's been hidden for centuries, maybe for a reason." Marty nodded, his eyes reflecting the flickering torchlight from the site below. "And we're not stopping now." The curse of Oak Island continued to defy logic, rewrite history, and captivate hearts. And with every baffling artifact and every mysterious tunnel, the mystery only deepened, keeping the team guessing and the legend alive.